Good afternoon. My name is Steven, and I'm going to talk to you about NASCAR racing. I want to create my own NASCAR show called NASCAR Know-It-All with Steve. I one day hope to have my own form of broadcasting about NASCAR, but today it's going to start here. Every week we're going to talk about some form of NASCAR racing, and tonight we're going to talk about racing at the Richmond International Raceway, racing perfection at a three-quarter-mile racetrack. We're going to talk about Richmond because NASCAR is racing there. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about the races there since 2000, the first year I watched NASCAR racing. The most exciting part about the Richmond International Raceway was in 2000, we saw a new driver emerge as a possible favorite. Coming into this race, one driver had already gained world-renowned recognition. That driver was Dale Earnhardt Jr. He had won a race previously at Texas, and he was already becoming the sport's most popular driver. Looking to be on his way to Rookie of the Year. Coming into Richmond, he was very excited. Not only had he recently won at Texas, but Richmond was one of his best tracks in the NASCAR Busch Series. He actually won a race there in 1999, beating Mark Martin with 7 laps to go. At that time period, anyone who passed Mark Martin in the Winn-Dixie Ford had really accomplished something. In the race, Dale Earnhardt Jr. showed huge speed. But in the end, he had to hold off the Iron Man, Mr. Consistency, Terry Labonte. Labonte was a pro at Richmond, having already won there 3 times, including 2 years prior, where he had moved Dale Jarrett out of the way to win. Would he move another Dale out of the way? I'm afraid not. In the last few laps, Labonte tried hard, working that steering wheel, pulling to the inside, pulling to the outside. Coming off of turn 4 in the last lap, he was on the inside of Junior, but he couldn't complete the pass. Dale Earnhardt Jr. became the first driver in 2000 to win multiple races, looking like he would win Rookie of the Year. But the very next week, NASCAR newcomer as well, Matt Kenseth from Cambridge, Wisconsin, would pick up his first career win in the Coca-Cola 600 at Charlotte, vaulting himself to the top of the Rookie of the Year points lead, a position he would no longer give up. Kenseth was used to holding positions for a long time. In 2003, he held the points lead for 34 weeks en route to his first career championship, an all-time record. Later that year in 2000, the series came there, and Jeff Burton looked to be the favorite. He had won the previous race at Loudon, New Hampshire, which had a similar setup to Richmond. But not only did he win, he took it to him. In the words of Alan Gustafson, he crushed him. In the race, he led all 300 laps after qualifying second. All 300 laps! Can you believe that? With the stiff competition in 2000, that seemed unheard of. The last time that had happened was at the Bristol International Raceway in 1973. That's right, International Raceway, because that was the name of Bristol then. It was not Bristol Motor Speedway as it is now. That day, Cale Yarborough led all 500 laps. Think about that. That's 27 seasons between races where a driver led every lap. 27. I'm not 27. That seems such a long time. Anyways, that night at Richmond, as expected, Burton dominated, leading over 200 laps, but a late race caution derailed his chances of winning. Jeff Gordon and Mark Martin came in for fresh tires. Shortly after they went green, another restart occurred, a down finger restart. What is a down finger restart, you young fans ask? An excellent question. A down finger restart was before double file restarts. It was a restart within 10 laps to go, meaning only the lead lap cars could start up front. Therefore, Jeff Burton would have a bit of a disadvantage. On the restart, Jeff Gordon in second, he charged to the inside. Burton put a block. Gordon charged back to the outside, got on his right rear corner panel, made Burton loose a little bit and wanted 2, and coming off at 2, Gordon charged down the backstretch to take the lead. Burton would fall back to 4th, losing second to Dale Earnhardt and losing 3rd to Mark Martin. Gordon would pick up his second, and so far only, other victory at the Richmond International Raceway. He's finished second there an amazing 7 times. That sounds like Mark Martin at Pocono, where he has also finished second 7 times. The 2001 season had 2 things in common. Rusty Wallace looked certain that he would win both of them, but Rusty Wallace won neither of them. In the spring, an old rivalry was renewed. Rusty Wallace and Jeff Gordon made contact late in the race. It didn't help either one of them. In fact, it hurt their chances, giving Tony Stewart the win. Stewart would pick up his first win in what would become a 3-win season. He would finish the year second in points. But most people remember what Rusty Wallace did. He showed a not-so-positive gesture to Jeff Gordon, and he was fined $5,000. Of course, the money they make, that's chump change, literally, as Rusty Wallace would pay his $5,000 in pennies. Pennies, pennies, that's right, pennies. You pay it in pennies. $5,000 worth. I challenge you to go ask your local bank teller for $5,000 in pennies. I guarantee you're going to go look like, yeah, pretty much speechless. Nothing can say that. So in the fall, Rusty again looked like he was going to win. But a restart after 368 laps really ruined his chances. Ricky Rudd would end up giving him the bump and run off of turn 2 with 28 laps to go. Rudd looked certain that he would win. But a new Charger by the name of Kevin Harvick was looking for what would be a surprising third win of the season. In fact, Harvick finished ninth in points that year, and he didn't even run all the races. That is mightily impressive. Harvick would give Ricky Rudd the bump and run with 16 to go, but Rudd would run him back down, returning the favor. Rudd would pick up his second win of 2001, finishing fourth in points. It was only the second time since 1990 that Ricky Rudd had won multiple races. The other time was 1997, when he bagged the Brickyard 400 in Indianapolis, as well as holding off Mark Martin at Dover. Many fans believe he should have won multiple races in 1991, because he won the race at Darlington early in the season. At that time it was called the Trans-South Southern 500, but unfortunately he did not win at Sonoma, which many people believe he did. Coming to the white flag, Ricky Rudd spun out Davey Allison in turn 11, the old hairpin corner, to take the lead. But when Rudd came around to take the checkers, he was issued the black flag. He was given a 5-second penalty, thus finishing second, giving Davey Allison the win. This was so ridiculous, most people don't understand it. In fact, I even challenged this. Dale Earnhardt Sr. won multiple races by doing this, and nobody said anything. In fact, the most obvious is 1999, the Goodies 500. Terry Labonte made a great move to get inside of Dale Earnhardt coming to the white flag, but in turn 2, Earnhardt just spun Labonte out. They didn't black flag Earnhardt in that race, and what an interesting thought that is, because in that race, Terry Labonte was driving the number 5 Kellogg Chevrolet for Hendrick Motorsports. That race at Sonoma that day, Ricky Rudd was driving the number 5 Tide Ride for Hendrick Motorsports. Rick Hendrick lost both of those races. I wonder if he thinks about those. Nevertheless, let's move on. So 2002, the series came to Richmond in the spring. Ryan Newman looked poised to pick up his first career victory after Ricky Rudd was wrecked by Rusty Wallace. It was a similar wreck to what happened the previous September at the Dover International Raceway. Unfortunately, the Rushville Rocket from South Bend, Indiana would not be able to pick up his first win. In a race marred by cautions and wrecks, the Pontiac Excitement 400 was won by a Pontiac who started last due to an engine failure. That Pontiac was Tony Stewart, picking up his second win of a season that would become a 3-win season, and ultimately the season that Stewart picked up his first career championship, beating Mark Martin. Later that season, Ryan Newman again looked poised to pick up his first career win, finishing second, but the favorite after practice was Matt Kenseth. Kenseth didn't disappoint in the race. Starting 27th, he drove to the lead almost immediately. But unfortunately, he would have 2 flat tires within the first 100 laps. And by midway, he was 2 laps down. But he would charge back, making both laps up, and he would get the lead within the last 100 laps. I remember watching this race as a kid, and with 10 to go, Rusty Wallace was catching Kenseth. And they said, well, Kenseth's lead is shrinking. But Kenseth had a full length of the back straightaway lead at this point. Don't you think he was taking it easy, trying to conserve his tires? Especially since he'd already had 2 flats? Well, you know what happened? Rusty Wallace had a flat tire with 4 laps to go. What are the odds? That's right, announcers. Matt Kenseth knew what he was doing. As it turns out, Kenseth would win the race comfortably over Ryan Newman. Newman would go on to pick up his first career win the very next week in a rain-shortened race at Loudon, New Hampshire. In 2003, the race was very peculiar. Most of the leaders who really ran well ran into problems. Kurt Busch, Bobby Labonte, Robbie Gordon. But all of them charged back. Busch would finish 9th. Robbie Gordon would come from 3 laps down to finish 4th, and Bobby Labonte would finish 2nd. But none of them had anything for the number 25 UAW Delphi Chevrolet driven by Joe Nemechek. Nemechek would pick up his 3rd career victory that night. He would win 4 altogether in his career. A race at New Hampshire in 1999 where he took 2 tires on the final stop, beating Tony Stewart. A race at Rockingham in 2001 where Nemechek just spanked him for Andy Petree Racing. And also he would pick up a 4th win at the Kansas Speedway driving for MB2 Motorsports in 2004. He would hold off Ricky Rudd in a photo finish. But this race at Richmond was perhaps his greatest because he had the dominant car. The race was actually shortened by rain, but as Bobby Labonte said, it didn't matter anyway. Joe Nemechek was the guy to beat. and the rain delay happened with 7 to go. I don't think it mattered. Later that year in the fall, the race came down to Ricky Rudd, Kevin Harvick, and Ryan Newman. It looked like it would be a repeat of 2001. But Ryan Newman was not going to be denied the lead. And when Ryan Newman's leading late, he's hard to pass. Harvick couldn't get it done, and in the process, he was holding up Rudd. The two made contact. Harvick hit the wall hard. Most people forget that Newman held on to win and that Jeremy Mayfield managed to escape to finish second, but everyone remembers what happened afterward. Everyone thought that Ricky Rudd and Kevin Harvick would have a fight. As Harvick said, Rudd has one coming. It was so peculiar, though, because the previous night, Matt Kenseth got wrecked for the win on the last lap. And Harvick said, well, Kenseth shouldn't be that upset. He wins too much. Well, when the shoe was on the other foot, Harvick didn't see it quite that way. Well, everybody, I believe this will be the end of part 1 of our segment, so I will sign off here. Again, my name is Steven. Thank you for watching NASCAR Know-It-All with Steve. You have a beautiful night.